All right. Good morning, YouTube. In today's video, I have the honor and the pleasure to be talking to John Atallah. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly there, brother.
Oh, good,
Right.
dude.
So he has a channel catered towards fitness, self-improvement. I think he has a very good message, and I do think it's worth the lookout. So go ahead and go onto his channel after this video. But we're going to have a nice, good discussion here today. So, John, if you could introduce yourself.
Hey, guys. My name is John Atallah. Appreciate the that's shout out, Karel. And Karel, I'm sorry. I'm being silly.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, so my content is still in the evolving process on YouTube, but I've been lifting probably seriously for 4 years now. I'd say 5 years of just garbage fitness, six-pack shortcuts, Athlete X type of advice, and you spin your wheels. And then the past 4 years, I actually started reading and implementing real training advice, probably gained like 30 pounds in 4 years, and it's been pretty awesome. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Lifting weights is fun. It's the best thing ever. Like, everyone needs to do it, quite honestly.
I agree. Yeah.
So today we're gonna have a discussion on a lot of different topics: power building, progressive overload, diet. So, John, if I know you have a couple questions and notes prepared, so if you want to get started with that.
Yeah, awesome. So my original question for you is, what drew you to the power building model? Because as we were just talking earlier before this, both of our training philosophies have been very similar, and I think we're evolving at a similar pace too right now. So I was wondering what drew you to that model compared to a strictly bodybuilding or powerlifting style.
So for me, like, I grew up with like, my idols were like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the movies, Rocky, Jean-Claude Van Damme. And it's not only when you watch those movies and whatnot, it's not only that they looked good, they also did really impressive things. So for me, it was kind of like they went hand in hand and had to be part and parcel together. So just doing one, I was like, well, what about this? Like, I was very much like I really did have training ADHD, and I feel like a lot of people have that to an extent. It's just how well they can control it. So how focused can they be with their training program and whatnot. But I do think that there is at least a good amount of people who want both and aren't really being able to do some now and some later, or all of it now and some later, just doesn't vibe with them, because that's definitely me. So I wanted to build muscle, but I wanted to also improve my deadlift. I wanted to get bigger, but I also wanted my bench to go up. These were not things that I could convince myself to go into the gym and not work towards both of those goals at the same time, because then I would just lose motivation. That's my thing. I think when it comes to a lot of people's training and their intent, it really just kind of boils down to what gets them motivated to go. And maybe motivated is not the right word to go, but it's just kind of I will feel worse if I don't go to the gym for this reason. And if I'm not working towards strength and size, I just feel weird going to the gym, quite honestly. I did my first arm day in a year, last week, and I was just like, this is kind of weird, but I'm
gonna do it for something's not right.
Yeah. I'm a little older now, so I can kind of I'm a bit more mature than back then, so it was better. But yeah, I know for a fact old me would have been like, geez, this is weird.
I understand that. I actually had, for those who don't know, I recently strained my pec. I was chasing a bench record. I hit 315. I was trying to get 325 and just did not vibe well. So now I'm on leg and arm days, because I can't overhang because the stretch is too much weighted. So I'm also starting arm days and leg days, and it also feels very off. But for my power building, I've done a lot too. I just find the numbers is fun. I think it's easier to compare. It's harder to compare physiques without measurements online, at least from my perspective. So I know the visuals are false. I know everything's false. So it's like, if I see someone deadlifting 600, I'm like, I could probably hit that. So it's always been more fun to chase for that. But with this injury now, I'm like, well, maybe I have to start changing things. But I also think for the beginner, I think it's hard to disassociate the two in a sense too, because in the beginning, you're getting stronger almost every single week. So it's like, how are you're not training for 1 rep max strength necessarily in the beginning, but you're still increasing numbers, increasing all the time. So I think a lot of people mix the two in their mind a lot. And I was wondering, do you think power building is a good way for naturals to train, or beginners in a sense?
Okay,
so you're just hitting the gym.
Beginners. My views on this have been like challenged pretty, I don't want to say pretty hard, but like in a very good way lately. One of my friends, he actually advocates the exact opposite of what I recommended for like quite a long time. So what I recommended for my beginners was just, all right, identify the amount of days that you will hit with 100% consistency and just commit to that. So when I was a personal trainer, like when I would ask people like how many sessions they would want, I'm not trying to sell them to buy the more expensive package. What I'm trying to ask them is like, look, like you be completely honest with me. Can you do 2 days a week or can you do 3? Like, and then and if they say like, well, maybe I can do 3 if like this goes right on this day. I said, okay, cool, we're gonna do 2 days. I just like bump them down. I was like, no, like I'm not dealing with maybes. And we were 100% consistent with those 2 days, put good effort into those 2 days, and they were about 45 minutes to an hour sessions. But then for my friend's method, his is more like, well, 6 days a week, maybe 30, 45 minutes at a time, and really easy stuff. Like maybe a little like, and mostly machines, mostly that kind of stuff, which is, you know, when I first heard that, I was like, damn, that's like old school, like early 2000s, like bodybuilder, like just get a pump, bro, kind of like stuff. But then like now that we're kind of evolved, like we can look at the ideas and the principles that are associated with it, make them better, and then apply them to more people with more success. So I think that there is great value in either one, where it's just either putting maximum effort into the small amount of time you can be 100% consistent, or try to build that skill of consistency with like more frequent workouts and going around that way. So then how does power building go into this? Well, in mine, so I have an hour with this person. I started to change my personal philosophy on how to train other people when I started to encounter a wider variety of people, a wider variety of goals. And now there was a pressure, essentially. Like people are paying me and people are giving me their time. I need to give them results. So there was a point in time where I was just like, all right, maybe 30 minutes of the session, maybe more, was just spent fixing squat, bench, and deadlift form. And I was just thinking to myself, like, damn, he's really not making any progress in the gym. Like, so then what I decided to do was, okay, here's what we're going to do. All that squat, bench, deadlift stuff is going to be 10, 15 minutes. That's it. I'm not spending anything more than 10, 15 minutes. After that, I'm going to be doing easier, more stimulative or like that kind of exercises. So 10, 15 minutes on the barbell, basic movements, and then everything else, machines, dumbbells, and what have you. So you can call that power building, because I still view those exercises as very important, not necessarily crucial or vital. It's just like, well, if you have access to that piece of equipment, that exercise, and you don't have any real limitations stopping you from doing it, learning it will only help you in the long run. Becoming too attached and thinking that that's all you need, that will definitely become an issue. But to just not use it at all, I think is irresponsible at best. So 10, 15 minutes, like with the barbell, everything else there. So I started using the analogy that the barbell lifts, those are an investment into your size and strength. Like, because there's a lot of factors that will go into it, your leverages, your genetics, your starting point, how proficient you are with that movement. And once those things either get managed or dealt with or trained up on, then yeah, the barbell lifts are going to be great. But when I'm responsible for their time and their money to give them results, I was just like, damn, dumbbells, machines, cables, they just do a better job. I can put more work into the same amount of time, so the density of the training is getting better, and then they are going to get better results, feel more motivated coming into each session, because there is a much clearer line of progression. Like if I just tell them, hey, your form's getting better, it's like, well, that doesn't really mean shit to them.
Not very tangible.
Like, yeah. It's just like, I paid you to get make me look better. It's just like, so it's just like, so that's my thing. So power building for beginners, I think if what you mean by that is kind of like how I described it, where 10, 15 minutes, you put in that time investment to improve this skill. And you're mindful that you're not just trying to chase numbers. You're actually trying to make sure that they are getting the most out of these time proven exercises, where you're not just telling them, all right, we're gonna widen out your grip, or do this. It's like, I'm gonna teach you how to bench safely. Like, when I teach people how to bench now, I always say like the two things we're gonna prioritize is safety and stimulation. Like the numbers, that is secondary. Like, if you are a power builder, I think for the most part, most of your exercise selection and exercise form should be more bodybuilder based. Like, you're not trying to, if you are a power builder, you should be, in my opinion, optimizing more so for the bodybuilding side of things. Because if you're optimizing more for the strength side of things, just power lift. It's a much more efficient way to get to your goal. So for beginners, I think they should have that investment in the beginning, but then everything else should be followed up with accessory isolation type movements. And I think that's a good way to train for beginners.
All right. Yeah. So my friend's been coming with me to the gym, and we don't deadlift. We work on his trap bar deadlift, and he's been seeing really good gains of that. But then the squat, we can never. It took a long time. At a point, we're like, okay, we spent like 30 minutes on this. Let's just put you on the leg press, and you can just leg press. And he's a very tall, lanky guy, but his knees, he can get really good range of motion on that, and he feels it. And it's like, okay, so at some point, maybe a squat will be a good substitute, but we can still see results with the leg press. And he doesn't care about a squat 1 rep max. Like, he has no interest in that. But I've been seeing good results. Leg press, like, I can't fit in my pants anymore. Not that, just like it's been like 3 months, and he's probably put some size on his legs now. So it's just like, okay, so we were seeing the results. So those weren't necessarily needed, but it is another tool to keep using, you know. So I think everything will have a place for people at some point in time.
Yeah, and like what I usually say is like, find out if the tool is worth it for you, you know? Like, don't just go based off what someone else has said. Like I'm a huge believer in like, what you need most is where you least want to look. Like, so like when my deadlift stalled, I knew exactly what I needed to do, and I didn't want to do it, and I tried finding other ways to go around it. I needed to squat more, quite honestly. My squat was like, at that point in time, my squat was actually lower than my bench press, just because I did not care for squats. I did not like squats. I just always wanted to reset to lighter loads because I didn't like how it felt. And then I was just like, all right, let me just stop being a bitch and like actually like go hard on my squats. But one thing I will say with like, let's say squats and all that kind of stuff, right? I was having a discussion with my coach, and we had a talk about silver era, golden era bodybuilders and their legs. They would have significantly better legs if they had access to modern machines, because like for the most part, their machines for leg training just weren't that good, and still placed a lot of fatigue on the lower back and everything of that nature for the most part. So things like the leg press, the hack squat, they didn't really come into like until the, I think like 90s, early 2000s, kind of like around that point in time. And that's why, like, you know, back then it was a Y frame or like a, like, so, but then became like an X frame where both sides were there. So that just kind of goes to show the efficacy of like machines and how effective they are nowadays. And when I heard that, I just started thinking to myself, like, fuck, he's right. Like, squats are not end all be all. And then that like really just solidified that point for me. And then I've always, like, you know, because of that time I spent as a personal training and being a bit more responsible for people's results, that's when I kind of like had those dots kind of placed into my mind. But it wasn't until he said that just kind of like connected it all for me. So it was a good talk with him. Yeah.
That's really cool. And going off of that, you're talking about like you had to increase your deadlift numbers, you had to squat more. Do you think there is a point where you get diminishing returns from just like getting stronger and stronger and stronger, right? So to relate this back to myself, like I hit 315, I was going for some more, excuse me. And then I hurt my pec after that I was doing a standing strength bench press program, incorporating with like other hypertrophy movements and things. So I kind of made my own conglomerate of stuff. But what is the point? Like, do I really need to add 5 more pounds to keep getting muscle, or 5 more pounds in this lift? Like, is getting 225 for reps kind of the point of diminishing returns curve, where it's just like, okay, maybe I should focus on a different movement to keep getting muscle?
So it does so one thing I would say is like, it depends on a couple different things, like, because strength is you know, multifactorial. There's leverages, there's genetics. Like some people are just more powerful, and some people like suffer more with rep work. Some people succeed more with what 1 rep max is. But when it comes to the goal of hypertrophy, a 1 rep max doesn't do shit for hypertrophy. Your 1 rep max increasing is a byproduct. It's not the goal. It's not something you're going to measure. I don't think it's a good measurement for checking to see if you're growing. There are a lot of other metrics that are more relevant for, like, let's say your hypertrophy than a 1 rep max. So for that point of diminishing returns, I think for most people 225 is around that starting point. But I think if you do 225 to 275 for reps, I think you're fine.
Right.
Like, I think that's that range of, like, depending on height, weight, leverages, and everything like that, that kind of like that range kind of like takes care of it for the most part. And if you're doing it for like sets of 8, 10, 12, I don't think you're going to be small from that. 315 as far as a 1 rep max, I think that's the new 225. Like, I do think everyone who trains properly, is patient enough and whatnot, can hit a 315 bench. But is that necessary for a big set of pecs? I don't think so.
Yeah.
And then let's say with something like squats or deadlift, I was going to make a strength standards video, but then like as I was about to record it, I get notifications from like all my other YouTube pages that I follow, and they basically like all just shit on strength standards. I was like, all right, the algorithm is not, yep, it's like, let me step back real quick, like let me not be contrarian right now, but yeah. So for as far as like deadlift, for first and foremost, I think if your goal is hypertrophy, Romanian deadlifts or stiff leg deadlifts should be your primary form of pulling. Trap bar is another good option. Block pulls can be another good option if they work better for you, because they put you in a better pulling position. So, but then for the most part, I'm going to say that as long as it resembles more of a conventional lift, it's going to be better for hypertrophy, just because it's a bit more developmental, using a bit more musculature. You're using muscles that aren't necessarily being biased nearly as much in other movements. And then as far as numbers go, I think even a 4-plate deadlift is impressive for most people. Like,
I'd agree.
We get so like caught up and distracted, or we see so many phenomenal lifters hit incredible numbers that we kind of forget that impressive to mere mortals is like even a 315 deadlift with good form is rare in commercial gyms, like, quite honestly. There's a lot of people who can just throw 315 up or whatever, but it's the
terrifying.
Worst thing
yeah, I think last week I made a video about Jeffrey Schofield and why Steve Shaw made a video on him, why people are saying he's weak. And like his 1 rep maxes aren't bad for someone who trains hypertrophy, but it's just like we're just suffering from overexposure at this point, where we can even say like his numbers are bad. You know, like we're exposed to the top 1% all the time, and it's like, why is this man? He's huge. He doesn't really post good lighting videos. If he took the time and effort to do that, I think like he would look incredible from an online perspective. But how are we at the point where like his number, even incredible with his like he doesn't optimize, you know, compared to like a lot of Instagrammers, you know.
Oh, true. So, who literally have to like turn off every single like light bulb in a hallway except one.
Exactly. Like, so I've from the videos I've watched, I've never seen it optimized. But to get back on the point, like, why are we considering his numbers weak? Like, if I gave any of his numbers, it was like a 275 bench. Honestly, I shouldn't say I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but they'd be respectable if I gave them to anyone in my gym. Like, I'm past those, but I don't know anyone in my gym who's at his numbers. You know, so it's like for the average person, they'd be like, oh, I feel pretty good. The 315 deadlift with good form would be really nice. You know?
Like let's see. When I went to a powerlifting gym, like that was the first powerlifting gym I joined. Like even there, I was kind of like, that was the first moment where like my strength dysmorphia kind of like was alleviated a little bit, because on a wall they had like the paper like records of everyone who competed in a powerlifting meet at their gym. And I see people my weight class, my age, and then I look at their numbers and I compare them to mine, and I was like, wait, I'm just as strong, if not stronger than most of these people on this wall. And then I just thought to myself, like, am I actually strong? Like I had a moment where I was just like, am I not weak? Can I actually be proud of my numbers? And like, you know, the internet would say no. It's like, where the fuck is your 700-pound deadlift, your 800-pound deadlift? Like, where's it at, bro? And then, yeah, like you said, like we're exposed to the top 1% all the time. Like if you follow King of the Lifts, like Instagram page, like you're just gonna get sad every day.
Right. It's like a lifting vault on YouTube. I don't know if you watch him, but there's like this like 18-year-old girl who like squatted 400 pounds. You're just like, dude, it took me so long.
So long, yeah. And like that's like strength is and here's another thing that I will say though. Like strength is a very good goal. It's a very worthy goal. It's a very rewarding and fun goal. But the thing is, like, this is, I think, where comparison as a thief of joy like really comes into play. It's like, you're getting stronger. You go to the gym to get stronger. Like you can be competitive and everything like that. And I think being competitive is really important. But at the same time, like your will to be competitive should try to make you better and not necessarily make you feel worse. Like you shouldn't feel like you're just constantly falling behind. It's more so like, are you still staying in the race? Like, I think that's a bit more of a better outlook when it comes to strength training. Like strength it's fun. I like strength training and I'll never leave it behind. But yeah, like the fact that we just see so many people and we can think that these numbers are weak. It's like, well, to just remember, go into your gym and just at any point in time of the day, like just ask yourself, of these people, who can lift those numbers? Right. Like, and even with someone with, like you mentioned, Jeffrey's numbers, which are still impressive, like most people in a commercial gym are not hitting that. Like they are outliers in their own gym, and then there are just outliers in the world that are just hitting numbers that are just insane.
Yeah, I don't know. I think our internet exposure is just being too much right now. And actually, to lead off of that, why do you think I feel like lifting is getting more complicated for people now? And is it just overexposure again? Is there just too much information and it's not like the principles are very basic. It's just progressive overload. You need to sleep, get your stress in check. You need to eat if you want to grow. And like at the end of those are the fundamentals. There's more nuance than that, of course. But at the end of the day, there's very few fundamentals. And as long as you're following them, if I have progressive overload on a leg press or leg extension, my legs are going to grow, you know? So why is it so complicated? If you have any insight to that.
Like you mentioned, like there's one nuance is a really big one, right? Because there is so much information out there. Like people tend to have like a this or that mentality, like all or nothing, like black and white thinking. There's no nuance allowed for that. And the more information you have, when you have a this or that mentality, the only thing you could process things as is right or wrong. And so one of my like hobbies, there's a very like common line of thinking where it's just like, there's no such thing as right or wrong. There's just more or less efficient ways to do things. And there's a very important part at the end of that statement that is so crucial for you. There's no such thing as right and wrong. There's just more or efficient or less efficient ways to do things for you. Now, I don't really agree with that first part too much because I do think that they're like the right thing does exist. Like there's a lot of different right things, but there's not an infinite number of right things. So I think that's very clear to put out. But that second part where it's just like more or less efficient ways of doing things for you is the part that we kind of fail to understand and fail to really recognize. People want expedience. People want a quick, easy, simple, right answer all the time, no matter what, will always work and never fail me. And when you do that, and you try to do that based off an average, based off the authority of another person, based off something that is so outside of yourself that it becomes irrelevant. Like people, I just feel like are unwilling to kind of learn about themselves and make mistakes. The best way to kind of get better at anything is to make mistakes, is to kind of put yourself out there, like see where those mistakes are and then improve. Like, for example, I like using martial arts analogies, and like a lot of times there's no substitute for sparring. And the reason being is because you can look as pretty as you want on a bag, but the moment you get punched in the face, you're going to make some adjustments and you're going to find all of your bad habits. And then now you have a lot more information to work on. So when you go back to that bag, you can practice that all of those skills again. Then the next time you go to sparring, you get your ass kicked less. And same thing applies with the gym. Commit to something, try it out, see what happens. Unfortunately, it's not as quick as someone actually punching you in the face, but you're gonna know when you hit those plateaus that that's exactly what it feels like. Like, I'm doing all of this work for what? And then you make these changes. You look at your notes, you look at your training logs, you come to find out like, okay, like this is not working. What is something that I know works but am not doing? Apply that thing, make that change, make that adjustment, and then you kind of go from there. So with why it's so complicated now, I think the hardest part is that we are given so many dots, but we don't really have a way to kind of connect them in a way that makes sense. And sometimes people really struggle with this. I struggled with this for the longest time. People kind of struggle with knowing something and being okay with not executing on it. Like, let's say, for example, conjugate works, West Side Barbell stuff and West Side Barbell, like, kind of techniques work. But then for whatever reason, you also know something else works and you want to commit to this one thing. But because something else out there works, you never fully commit to what you need to do right now with whatever it is you chose to do. And that gets into a lot of people's way. Because, like, oftentimes when I am making programs for people, working with people, they'll say, well, what about this? Well, what about that? And then they kind of don't see that when you start incorporating other things, it starts taking away from that, especially the more like opposed that they are. So nuance, this all or nothing kind of thing is just all the ways that just mess us up, I would say.
Yeah, I'm kind of more of like a keep it simple, stupid kind of guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you want bigger arms, you'll need some isolation work, like as I'm doing now. It's like, if you want a bigger chest, there needs to be more than just the bench. I think you just made a recent video on that too, actually.
Yeah.
So it's like, just keep it simple. Don't complicate two things. Like, there's going to be more advanced training programs as you learn more, but in the very beginning too, it's like, you don't need that much. Have some basic knowledge. I think one of the first books that actually changed my kind of lifting philosophies. I grew a lot since then, but it was Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. I don't know if you ever read that one from Amazon. But
I'm familiar with it.
It's finally just like an outline for me to follow in a plan, even though it's like bro split type stuff, which I'm like very full body now most days. But like, at least it was a training plan. I did get some results from it because it's the first thing. I was just like, I could stick to something. And then it was just, I didn't have to worry about all these other different methods for a time being, at least, until I had my foundations down. So,
dude, yeah. And like, one thing I will say too is like, keeping it simple is such an underrated skill, because I think we can all remember a guy who, he might have succeeded in spite of his methods and not necessarily because of them. But at the same time, if you look at the fundamental principles that he does apply, or she applies, is they were just very consistent and they just worked hard. Like, I've met people who, like, they did not have a complicated program at all. His program was literally this: on Monday, I'll hit chest and I'll do one back exercise. On Tuesday, I'll hit like shoulders and some quads or something like that. He just like split up his week like that and said, no matter what, I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna do that. And then that was enough for him to like get pretty good results. And I was just like, we need more of that.
That's the biggest thing, is people just don't allot the time in their life for it. It's like, I can't make it 5 days a week, so I'm not gonna. It's like, no, like, I exercise 2-3 days a week for years and I got decent results. It was the difference was I showed up. That's the biggest thing.
People like, oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say, it's not the crazy programs or anything. Like, you can do fine on a bro split. Like, I knock it all the time, but mainly because you have to be there 5 days a week. It's like, if you did one upper day a week and one lower day, not optimal at all for hyper, but you're there and you will see some results, because at least you're weightlifting a little, and then from there, once you're consistent, move on. It was like your point back at the beginning: how many days can you allot per week, and start there. To be
exactly, consistent. And sometimes what's funny too with that consistency thing is, like, I'll even start people with one less, because like there's like some other cues that you'll kind of pick up on, like when you are like talking to someone about their fitness goals, and like you'll kind of pick up on a couple things where it's just like, okay, so when they'll tell me like, oh, I could do 3 days no matter what, but then like, let's say earlier in the conversation they tell me how they were very passionate about a certain thing but then couldn't stick to it, and then they give you a very passionate answer about how often they'll do. So then I'll say, well, let's do 2. And then if you show up on that 3rd day, then we'll be good. So it might be like a self-fulfilling prophecy, or like I'm setting them up to fail, because I would ask them like, did you show up on your 3rd day? And I kind of do think it's an important skill where it's kind of like, can they show up to the gym without a trainer?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I did want to ask them, like, did you show up on your third day? And say, oh no, I had to do this, I had to do that. And it was like, well, I'm glad we committed to 2.
Right.
But you know, like I said, like there's also that flip side of the coin, which is like, well, if I told her 3, could we have gotten 3? But you know, I'll never know, but we can make some guesses, right?
I understand that.
Yeah, so it's insane because like I think and like, you know, like a lot more information comes out too, and we start to hear like so with like the dot analogy, right? We have all these dots, we don't know how to connect them, and then because we're constantly learning, we get a shit ton more dots, so the problem just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So then we forget what are the most fundamental things: consistency and effort. Like those are the 2 things that I make very clear. Like when I made YouTube content, the first thing I said was, everything I say does not matter if you're not consistent and you don't apply effort. And everything I say, you can do something totally different, but if you do it with consistency and effort, it will work for you. This is just a specific way of applying those 2 principles. But those 2 things are more important than anything else, and you need both. Like if you are consistently working without effort, you're not really going to get much out of it. And if you are putting in a lot of effort but very sporadically, you're not getting anything out of that either.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. So where are you putting your effort right now? Like, what are your training goals? I'm curious. I don't know if I've missed some of your videos, but I haven't really seen your own training goals that you're working towards right now. So either I missed those videos or you haven't discussed stuff.
I haven't really discussed it yet because I'm still, I don't know, thinking through it a little bit and like whatnot. But like, if there was a point in time, like a couple, like 2 weeks, where I was just ripping Powerbuilding apart, like I was just like trying to like, you know, logically and rationally like, you know, argue against myself. Because the thing is, one thing that I feel like a lot of like would benefit a lot of people is just take the opposite point of view, like, and legitimately think it through. Like I thought like I have videos for a fact I know where I say Powerbuilding is the best way to train for natural lifters. I know I have videos like that say that, but then I was like, okay, well, what if it wasn't? And then I just kind of thought to myself, like I spent a long amount of time just thinking to myself about that, because if I'm correct and like that Powerbuilding is, you know, the bee's knees and I could like keep going with it, and then I'll just keep going into a good direction and make gains. But then I kind of had to assess, am I going in a good direction? Why am I not going in a good direction? Because I kind of decided that, you know what, I'm probably not going in the direction I want to. And then where are all the pitfalls in my thinking that led me to that point, that if I could go back in time and tell myself these things, that I could rationally and logically say, like, these are the holes in your thinking, what are you going to do about it? So first and foremost, like, you know, I don't really plan on having a conventional full-time job anyway. So I decided to study philosophy. Like I get a degree in philosophy.
Very cool.
So yeah, thank you. But one of my favorite philosophers, that's legitimately what he did. He would pretend to be a completely different person with a completely different set of morals, values, and a philosophy to argue against himself so he could like make his own thoughts better. And then when you study philosophy, one thing that people don't really understand is that there's a couple different branches, one of which is logic. And logic is more like a language. It is more like a math. Like you can't just like, philosophy is not a subjective thing. You can be dumb with philosophy. Like there is objectively bad reasoning. So that's something I wanted to like kind of learn from. And when I started applying that to my own thought processes and like starting to I wrote down everything that I believed and just kind of like was just trying to blast it for its any inconsistencies. And when I started finding that, I was like, yeah, there are a lot of things that I can change. So for the most part, so for that 2-week span of time, I just shat on Powerbuilding like nonstop. Like I was just like, it's the worst thing ever. And then after that, I put a video where I was like, Powerbuilding sucks, but what if it didn't? And then I had like Jesus, like like, you know,
I know,
buff Jesus. So because my thing is this, I love the barbell lifts. Nothing will excite me more to train, like to go into the gym and train, than the barbell lifts. But is that a sufficient thing to make you a power builder? I don't think so. I like getting stronger in the squat, bench, and deadlift, But what am I trying to do when I'm in the gym? That's why I said, like in that video of power building sucks, but what if it didn't? The way it doesn't suck is to decide which is more important. Are you a bodybuilder first or a powerlifter first? Like if you are a powerlifter with size goals, cool. If you are a bodybuilder with strength goals, also cool. You're going to have to recognize that there's going to, like, both are going to take a hit. But if you know which one comes first, whether you take that in a phasic approach or even if you train concurrently, you know which one's going to be the most important thing. That's what matters. The problem with a power building philosophy is the fact that because you think to yourself, oh, I want both, then your priorities start to shift every now and then, where it's just like, okay, on some points in time, I'm more strength focused. And other points in time, I'm more size focused. But like, you're never really like fully committed to either size or strength. So then as a result, your strength training is half-assed and your size training suffers as a result of you being tired, and then vice versa the other way around. So being very clear about which one comes first, whether you take that in a phasic approach or a concurrent approach, is super important. I've made videos about that in the past, but actually in its implementation, its application, and its understanding, I think I could have done a better job with that.
I got you. Yeah. With relating back to myself, like I don't know if I ever, what got me, I really liked, like in my terms of watch history, I liked watching people lift heavy things more than like I liked the aesthetic stuff, you know, like I didn't really care for watching Arnold, but like a man picking up like 900 pounds, I'm like, that is that's sweet. So I definitely started more into the powerlifting lane, but then, you know, I also watched a lot of bodybuilding. So I don't think I ever identified with either, but my actions definitely pointed more towards powerlifting because I was very strength focused. So now I'm going through the identity shift too. It's like, do I want to keep continuing? If my past actions were more towards powerlifting, is like, am I going to keep continuing that, or would it be cool to get like 16-inch arms? You know, like
right. So I just realized I didn't answer your question though.
Oh no, it's okay.
Bodybuilding. I'm trying to focus more into bodybuilding at the current moment. And part of the reason is this though. Like I'll never abandon strength. I'll never leave strength behind. Like I mean, it's part of my brand name and whatnot. But my thing is this: when it comes to people who are lifting the craziest amounts of weights, I am more likely to watch if they're also jacked and stacked.
Yes.
Like if
like a Bald Omni Man or like Alpha Destiny
Bald Omni
Man,
Alpha Destiny kind of stuff. Like, so here's the thing, like I have nothing but respect for strongmen. I think they are some of the greatest athletes in the world, and like what they do is very impressive. Would I want to be one? No, and for a simple and there's a lot of reasons, but one of the main ones is like, well, I don't really like that look. Quite honestly, I want to look like a bodybuilder. But then one thing, I recently made a video where I say like one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made was, you want to look a certain way, train exactly like them. Like I did that with one of my idols for the longest time, Brian Alsrew. Is like giant set style training, like blocking things out into giant sets with basic compound movements. I did that for years, and maybe it was just because I was a novice and, you know, whatever other reasons, diet or what else have you. But I was finding that I was not getting those results, because when you train for a certain look and you just copy someone else's methods, what you were forgetting is that you're not that person.
Right.
And like the best way to just improve a muscle is to isolate that muscle and not necessarily just do whatever someone else is doing. So I'm focusing more so on bodybuilding at the current moment, but I'm still going to be using like the big basic compound movements just because that's what I enjoy. Obviously there are programming considerations for that, but it's not too crazy.
Yeah, actually with that, since I'm changing up my squat, like I've been low bar squat for I don't know how many years now. You're like, you know what? I'm gonna get really good at the high bar squat and try narrow stances, wide stances, just change it up and see how I feel that muscle, you know, differently with all these stances. Because like low bar, I don't know if I feel it anywhere. I just feel like I could get down and just really push hard. But with like high bar, my quads are hurting, man. Like the first day I did that, it's like, oh my gosh, I haven't done this in like 4 years, you know. So changing it up and is always good with all the movements. So.
And it's kind of crazy, like if you leave a movement behind for so long and then you go back to it, just how far behind it is. Like I like, you know, I have videos where I like where I'm benching like 315, and I'm pretty happy now because like now I can like bench it like even in the worst possible conditions, and then also for reps.
That's awesome.
But then like when it comes to incline benching, something I have not done for like I've not done incline benching consistently for anything longer than a week or 2 weeks, like in the past 4 years. My incline bench is literally like close to 135, 165 range, just because I have not committed any appreciable amount of time to that movement.
Right.
So I'm working on it now, but yeah, like, and then same thing with high bar. Squats have always been a struggle for me though, like for a couple of reasons. One, mentally, I just kept telling myself it's my worst lift, and I kept treating it that way. Second thing is just like I have so many injuries in that, in like my lower body. Like almost all my injuries came in my lower body, which for someone like me who doesn't care about big legs, in some ways it's a good thing, because it's just like, well, I wasn't going to train my legs anyway.
Can't do that.
Right, now I have a reason to. Thanks, God. Like, so, but yeah, so but now, yeah, high bar squats, that's the only way I squat now. I don't do any more low bar. That's a couple things that I made as far as an adjustment to be like a bit more of a power builder or a bodybuilder with strength goals. It's like get strong with bodybuilder form. So if you get to a 315 bench with minimal arch, not widening out your grip,
right,
and no leg drive, like a 315 bench with those three conditions,
that's insane.
That's a very different 315 than, you know, strapped up, wrapped up, wide grip, like, you know, like arching, so, like, and then
half your range of motion, you know, just the whole. Yeah, it's because I started Larson pressing too when I started watching more Ball Omni Man. I was like, this is challenging. Well, one, the benches at my gym are not wide enough, so you're just like you're balancing, and that's not too fun. So I'll just flat back bench now. But it's like the challenge is greatly different. You know, when you take out all your optimizations for more 1 rep max type models. You know,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And I something popped into my head when we were comparing power building / or bodybuilding and powerlifting. But for the combination of the two, I feel like when Jeff Nipper's programs started coming out, we've seen a lot more people liking it. And I really like those programs. But does that type of lifestyle appeal more to people on the internet? Because when I watch bodybuilding content, I see a lot of like intense diets, intense meal prepping, a lot of things. And I don't feel like when you associate bodybuilding, you're associating like Athlete X, like I only eat carrot cake once a year type stuff. You know, it's like the lifestyle is like, people are like, I can't live that lifestyle. So what am I going to gravitate towards? I see a bunch of like power lifters are huge and strong. Maybe they don't want to look like them, but I know they're enjoying fast food once in a while. I know they're enjoying, you know, like cake.
Like they might be injured, but they're getting Korean barbecue on weekends, you know?
Right, exactly. Because I have a lot of friends who like come to me for diet advice. They're like, what's your diet? I'm just like, bro, like I intermittent fast sometimes. I really eat what I want, but I just try to focus on like 80% good food. And that won't work. That won't work for some people. You know, they need a regimen. I'm like, I don't do regimens because that's not how I live. So it's just the two cultures that kind of come with it is why I'm thinking maybe some people are more drawn, at least in recent ages, people are drawn to powerlifting and power building compared to bodybuilding, is because of the lifestyle factors as well, which I've seen recently. So
something I want to say though is this: if you go into powerlifting because you don't want dietary restriction, you are a bodybuilder who doesn't want to commit to being a bodybuilder.
Right.
And maybe I'm projecting, because I'm 100% projecting, because that was me. I like, because I looked at the powerlifters, I was like, damn, he literally does get Korean barbecue on the weekends. He has donuts in the middle of the week. This is like, but he's still getting like bigger and stronger in the gym. Maybe I'll do that.
Right.
Because then like it required the least amount of change out of me. Because with a strength-based routine, it's like, are you improving in the gym? Cool. Like, go about your day, go about your business. Whatever happens is like secondary. But then when it comes to bodybuilding, like there's a bit more control with it. There's a bit more discipline to it. And I'm not saying powerlifting is without discipline. I mean, if you want to get the best results in powerlifting, you definitely need to be like as disciplined with your diet, your calories, your recovery management. Everything of that needs to be 100% optimized towards your goal. But when it comes to bodybuilding, that's on all the time. Like you have to be deliberate in any time you step away from it. You can't just like even if you are a bit more habit based, even if you are a bit more even if you are not as strict, you have a better understanding of where those lines are, where those boundaries are. I would say like that's one major difference when it comes to bodybuilding. Powerlifting, I definitely see it being the case where a lot of the time, if you're progressing in the gym, everything else is like, hey, you're having a good diet on top of that. Cool, man. But it's like not necessarily as much of a focus, because as long as you're, let's say, within your weight class or something like that, body composition, you're not getting any points for body composition.
Right.
So why should it be something you prioritize? But like I said, if you go into powerlifting because you don't want any dietary restrictions, you are a bodybuilder who's scared of bodybuilding. Like that's how I would describe myself at that point in time. Now, do I think that I need to be less than 5% to be a bodybuilder? Of course not. When it comes to like recreational bodybuilding and whatnot, if you are building the physique that you want, congratulations, you're a bodybuilder. If you're honest with your own goals, training needs, wants, and your own actions, you are a bodybuilder. If you are trying to like run away from the responsibilities of your goal, because when you have a goal, when you have something you set in place, you are committing yourself to a set of ideals and a set of responsibilities. Like if you say that you are a bodybuilder, you need to train hard. You need to unless you really do want to be like a bloat lord, then yeah, sure, like then cool, that's part of your goal.
Be a grizzly.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the thing is, like, are you being honest with yourself? Are your actions lining up with your intentions? And if that's not happening, then there's something going wrong. And the easiest place to retreat to is strength, because you can get better regardless of your diet if your training principles are in place. And because you are getting better in some other fashion, you can feel not as bad that you're leaving what you really want behind. And that doesn't apply to everyone, but I do think that applies to a lot of people, especially people who think that to look good, you need to be super low body fat. Because I believe that. I think that's one of the worst things to kind of fall into, and which is why, like, when Greg Doucette said, if you don't have abs, you're fat. Like,
it's ridiculous.
It's just like the most horrible thing you could say, like, and most irresponsible thing you could say with like your platform and your reach and whatnot. Because here's the thing, like, and I have conversations with some people, and like, if you can't look incredible, and I mean, have some ab definition, have a good muscle definition and good size at 18-20% body fat, then like I think that's more of an issue more than anything else. You can have a very impressive physique at 18-20% body fat, and I'm going to prove that when I get there.
Wait, I'd love to see it.
You'd like this idea that you have to be super shredded all the time. It's not realistic, The internet is a really
dangerous place sometimes.
It's a very dangerous place. Yeah. And like, I mean, even myself, above 20% at the current moment, no one has ever really questioned if I have muscle. No one has ever really questioned if I have an impressive physique. No one has really questioned if I like look good or am more like muscular or stronger than most people like in my local vicinity. So, when people say things like go outside and touch grass, I kind of think that that's what they mean. Like, get back in contact with reality. The internet is not like reality. Like, for a lot of the guys who I talk to, they'll talk to me because like I'm just, because my numbers are higher than them, they'll kind of like talk to me in a different kind of way. But then when they tell me like, oh, I bench only 225, I squat like 285, and I deadlift like 365, I was like, dude, that's really impressive. Like, really good job. And like, I know their form is good, and because I've like might have done a workout with them or something like that. Because like when I started working as a trainer, being not only in the gym all the time, like literally 8 to 10 hours a day, just looking at everyone training, and then on top of that, working with people, it's that really like brought things back down to earth too. Where it's just like, dude, 225, 285, and a 365 deadlift, that's impressive to most people. Because like and while the standards are definitely raising, we have to remember that the average is still overweight, obese, non-active, not dieting, not working out, like, so like kind of people need to remember that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And back to your point about bodybuilding dieting, I think that's another. We'll knock my mic over. Sorry, I lost my train of thought on that one.
Bodybuilding and dieting.
Bodybuilding and dieting. I think that's also a reason people like the powerlifting, because people will spin their wheels because they're not eating enough. Like when I was 150, I think I was 165. I cut down for a powerlifting meet. because I wanted to do deadlift, and I was like, I didn't need to cut, but I did because I wanted to be in the lower weight class. So I cut down to 150 below, and everything suffered. And then I was at that point, I was like, well, I'm shredded for a powerlifting meet, which was silly. This was like 2018. And then I didn't want to gain any more fat because like I look good. So everything stalled. So that bodybuilding online, you see shredded people all the time making a progress. And then you're like, well, I can't eat then. And it's like my best results were when I just started eating again. Like I ballooned up so quick because I didn't realize like I was training hard and just not feeding my body for like 4 years. And then the online expectations of, you know, you must have abs. If you don't have abs, you're fat. I think that's like the pitfall of bodybuilding online is like, I like the bear mode physique, honestly.
Yeah,
like
same.
I like it. Like I like feeling big. That allows you to be strong as well. Like I'm like 14% body fat. So I'd say I'm on like, I'm not bear mode, but I could be if I just force fed myself a little more. But like there's the middles that as naturals we can strive to, you know. I think that will be realistic for most people.
Yeah. And you just brought up like something that like just kind of like clicked for me. Like I think one thing that power lifters have done a lot better though when it comes to like diet is like if you want to get a bigger lift, eat.
Right.
Like oftentimes like with you know, with bodybuilding, their answer is like you got to feel it more and like, you know, get in touch with your feelings a bit better on this movement. But then like with the powerlifters, it's like, oh, you want to get a bigger bench? Eat, bro. Like,
yeah.
And then like what that
basic
comes
advice
with,
again.
yeah. In addition to their training, is like you're gonna build muscle from that, and then that's what gets you there. But then with bodybuilding, it's just like, are you meal prepping? Are you mind muscle connection? Like, are you doing like all these other techniques when it's just like just eat? Like,
yeah.
Like obviously, like coming from a bigger guy, that's probably not what some people want to hear. But
opposite of the spectrum.
yeah, it's just like you know, eat responsibly. Like, but eat at the end of the day.
Yeah,
so that was a very interesting thought. Never thought of that.
Yeah, it's difficult in modern environment to eat responsibly, though.
That's true. Yeah,
Very
and some
difficult.
like, well, so one question I wanted to ask you real quick then is like, Jeff Nippert, he recently released a video talking about is obesity a choice? I had a question ask me this on my like most recent live stream, and my general answer is that I do agree wholeheartedly with his message in there, where it's not as simple as like up and down, but I do also recognize that there is a personal responsibility and some amount of choice. And something that I feel like a lot of people underestimate is that you can change, like you can't not have a choice, but you can change the conditions in which that choice is made. So if, like, for example, if you are the only person in your family who's dieting, that's really hard. If you are the only person in your family who cares about their health, that's incredibly difficult to overcome. Especially if you're not the, you know, the economic, like, you know, source of income for that family and like making the decisions for groceries. And let's say for whatever reason you don't have a job or whatnot, where you can't like then exercise more control. And, you know, there's a lot of different things, like who do you hang out with also, like what's okay in your social circles. There's a lot of different things that will feed into a lot of these choices. So that's why with that video, I recommend people watch it. And I do align pretty closely with Jeff Nippert's views, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that real quick.
I'm a mix of both. I think so. Our environment shapes us so much, despite us maybe not wanting to acknowledge that. Like our childhood experiences, who we hang out with, just everything. Like first 18 years, let's maybe even longer than that, we're not really our person. It's just we're a culmination of our experiences and our parents, right? So when does the question I never answered is, when does our personal being actually come in? Like, when am I John and not just my parents' upbringing? But that's what to get back on topic is yes and no, right? So at the end of the day, it's on you. You know, no one else can change what you're putting in the mouth. So if you want to change, you have to have that personal responsibility. But our environments are so sick that it makes it very difficult for normal people. So what I mean by so sick is like McDonald's is on every corner. At your checkout, there's candy bars. The food is modified, so it's highly addicted for all of us. So it's like it should be expected that most people are in poor health just by the way we look at our environments. But the only way to change that is the people have to say no at the end of the day. If these companies are making money, they're going to keep making money. You know, it's It's just simple as that. This is where we live. So it has to be the cultural shift at the end of the day. And that will be through like people like you and me talking about it, people deciding to say, no, I don't want to buy McDonald's today. And then they slowly start moving like profit margins. So, but for the individual, it's on you and who you hang out with. I think at the end of the day, what am I deciding to put into my house? I don't have to buy potato chips and ice cream and leave that in my cupboard. So I'm tempted all the time.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't buy junk food I love ice cream. Like I eat ice cream probably like 2-3 times a week with my friends. Like, but it's rarely in my house. And if it is, I live with my mom. She buys it, and then it's in the freezer. Like I'm never buying junk food. I pack my lunch to work, so I'm not what's in the vending machine at work. You know, it's setting up your environment so you can succeed. You know, it's like a dirty room. If you're living in a dirty room, your mind's going to be cloudy. At least that's how I feel. Like if it's not vacuumed, it doesn't smell good. You know, it smells like my farts from night. It's like I don't want to be in here. Let me clean up my environment. So it is your choice at the end of the day to decide what you want to do. But it's also you should surround yourself with people who are going to give you better decisions to make. You know, I don't hang out with drug addicts because I don't want to do drugs. You know, I don't hang out with people who gamble all the time because I don't want to go gambling. So if you want to be healthy, try to find those people. Even if you're not that person, go to the gym, find that group, find their mindset, you know, and maybe they'll start to rub off on you because we're humans and we rub off on each other, our energies all the time.
Yeah, 100%. And another point that I want to make with that is like, I like how I just lost my train of thought immediately as I said that. But when it comes to like your environment and the people you hang around with, everything like that, another thing that I want people to recognize is that better is not drastic.
Yes.
Better is not always a drastic change. It's not always a drastic shift.
100%.
Like so I had a client and I literally told him, I want you to have one day where you don't have Coke. And like, cause he just drank Coke all the time. He loved it. And then he's just like, I was like, just have one day in the week where you just don't have Coke. Can you do one day? And he's like, yeah, I can do one day. That's easy. And I was like, all right, cool. Like if I told him a life without Coke, he would just like try to shoot me. So
I like Coke too. I have it occasionally, you know.
Right. So, but then he committed to that for one week. All right, cool. He started seeing a very minor shift on the scale down. It was very minor. Like it was like you're still having a Coke a day, but then at least on one day you're not having it. So
that's
then
like 300 calories, you know.
Exactly. And then like we do that for 3 weeks or so. I was like, how's it going with like one day without Coke? It's like, oh, it's pretty good. It's not bad. And then I said, like, can you do 2? And it's like, sure, I'll give it a try. And then like starts replacing it with these like kind of things. And then long story short, we started weaning him off of it. So we kind of go from 7 days a week to 3 days a week,
right,
to diet. And then now he's just like, just from that change alone was like 10-20 pounds. Like I know that's a big range, but like it was because you like up and down a lot. But
the waterway, there was other issues, yeah.
But yeah, he lost an appreciable amount of weight just from that change. Having something less frequently, swapping it out for an alternative, that was enough to make a change. People want drastic fixes, drastic changes, but oftentimes it's really as simple as make a minor change, and that's all that you need.
Well, it comes back to consistency too. You know, am I consistently not having that? And on my channel, I never preach drastic diets, only sustainable lifestyle changes, because that's going to win at the end of the day. Like when I leaned down, like, sure, I looked shredded, but I was so hungry then I ate up, you know, and then I was trying to sustain it, but I couldn't. It's just not, you need things that you can live with for the rest of your life. At the end of the day, I want to be 90. I'm not going to have this physique because we'll age and I'll lose. But, you know, I want to be healthy. I want to have habits now where I'm not like dieting up and down all the time. I want something that I can live with for the rest of my life. So like for me on my channel, I advocate intermittent fasting because for me, that's really easy to implement. Like I can skip breakfast. You know, I can shorten my eating window. I don't want to have to worry about like counting calories again. I did that. And I think everyone should, just to learn in the 21st century, be like, holy crap, like this candy bar has like 250 calories and no nutrition. Like those are things you should read. That should be a course in itself and everyone should know. But comes to an unhealthy point that I hit. It's like, oh, I put 20 calories of ketchup on my sandwich. Like this tomato has 5. I can't have those. I'm 20 calories over. It's just like, it gets so ridiculous. So only lifestyle changes. Like yesterday, what did I had like 3 beers. I was helping my friend like dig trenches at his house. And then I had a burger, and then I had like 5 cookies. Like it was a terrible, off day. Like I had poor nutrition, but today, like I had eggs with cheese and like a sandwich. I'm gonna eat like my normal banana peanut butter later. I'm gonna see my dad. He usually makes some healthy food. So it's like, you know, one day a week is off is fine. It's just your lifestyle and coming back to your normal balance in a sense. So adjusting where your normal lifestyle is, I think is the biggest thing. No, nothing drastic.
Yeah. And like with that point about balance and like, you know, having like an off day, like, you know, I think a other way to kind of put that is like be responsible with it and like plan it out, you know, like let's say with that day where you had like your beers, your cookies and your burger, right? Like I'm willing to bet that you didn't just think to yourself, well, I already went this far. Let me have a little bit more. So
No,
you kind of just like you were able to keep it to the meal. You're able to keep it to that moment and you're able to enjoy yourself. And, you know, balance is not just like, you know, I'm trying to work on this myself. Like a horrible way to implement balance is to try to have scales that only measure things in good and bad. Like
yes.
if you only measure things in good and bad and you like then the only choice you're going to make is the good healthy choice, which is, you know, maybe you're not enjoying your diet as much. And then what happens when you are doing a diet you don't enjoy? You cheat on it. You discard it. And then what ends up happening? You just put yourself on the whole other end of that other side of the spectrum, on that bad side. And then because you're just so far down deep into it, you commit to it even further.
Yep.
So when it comes to a lot of things, when I talk to a lot of people and like whatnot, when they say like, you know, how do I be more productive? How do I be better in the gym? How do I do this? Right. I say, make a program you want to do, make a schedule you want to have, make a diet plan you want to commit to. Like, you know, relationships are hard. So what do? You find a girl you want to be with. Like the same thing applies to a lot of other things in your life. Find what you actually want to do and then just commit to that. You don't, there's just arbitrarily going with these like good or bad. Like I said, there's not an infinite number of right things, but there are a lot of them where I'm sure you fit into at least one. Intermittent fasting is a great one. You know, some people will find great success on diets that I think are kind of stupid, but hey, it worked for them. So like, who am I to say? Like, who am I to
I'm
judge?
not like a keto fan or like I personally don't like any of those because most people I see they do keto, then they stop and then they're eating carbs again, and they balloon back up. It's just
because they didn't learn anything.
Right, but I do know some people that they did keto, but then they took their favorite recipes, and now that's part of them. You know, so they have so they have some recipes. So I think it's good to try these things. You know, like try them out. But the thing is, people we get stuck on. This is the one that's going to change my life. I'm like, bro, you are not doing keto till you're 90. I guarantee it. You are not going to do keto for the rest of your life because one day you're going to be at a barbecue with some friends. There's going to be like some awesome cake. You'll be like, yeah. Maybe there's one person watching this who's like, I've done it. I'm like, okay, you're not on the bell curve, dude. Like we're looking at it here. I don't want your like extremes. So, but I think it's important to try things still, you know, try the random diets, try the whatever. Don't view it as this is my answer. Just take what you learned and then take that. And then that's part of you now. Find the recipes. Like for me, intermittent fasting really helps. So I just keep that in my toolbox. Gather your tools. And eventually you can build a house, you know. You don't use your hammer and nail at all the time. You need to cut wood eventually, you know. So
yeah, that's a great analogy. I like that.
Yeah. So how are we doing on time? I think it's been about
it's been about an hour, but I still got time. I blocked out
cool.
most of my I blocked out until about we got a couple hours like to give. Yeah,
cool, sounds good. Yeah. So back to you. I remember you uploaded a recipe that actually looked really good because I very boring. How is your diet and how's your balance going now? Just curious about your updates because I remember you mentioned that in the natural hypertrophy video as well.
So what I do, I have a horrible habit of eating out, like just straight up. I you know, I'm young, like I think most people my age, when it comes to their spending habits, almost all of it goes towards eating out. So what I've decided is like, okay, let me just look at my like order history, look at the places that I order from, and just make it myself. Like, you know, it's a very like Asian way of thinking. It's just like, why should I buy that if I can just do it myself?
Yeah.
Like, but so Chipotle was a really common place where I would spend a lot of my money. Like when it came to eating out, In and Out. Like I'm from Vegas, so we copy like everything from California. So In and Out's available to us. I love Hawaiian barbecue. So like 2 scoops of rice and then like literally more than half the plate full of meat and then some cabbage underneath it. Got me.
Awesome.
So all I do is just like look at every single place that I eat out at, and then make a struggle version of it. So, for example, with the Chipotle bowl, like all I did was like took some meat, some carne asada seasoning, and then some pre-made salsa or pico de gallo, and then some guac. That's all. That's the only thing I put in there. If I wanted to add more, I could chop up lettuce. I could put in more vegetables. I can put some cheese and sour cream and whatnot, and make it like a legit thing. But it's just like, you know, the more simple you make it, and the more simple you make it, the easier it is. The less time it takes. The more like you can just make it on the go, and that's really important for a lot of people, because the more busy they become, the more convenience has to become a factor in what you choose to eat. So, and meal prepping, like, you know, sometimes like if you're just wasting it, then that makes it a bit difficult. So that's why for me, like I also like recipes that I can cook quickly.
Yes.
So, but yeah, like this is a very stable thing. Then another thing I can make is like another staple meal that I do is like a loco moco, which is basically just a hamburger patty, gravy, and then an egg. That's it. And then on top of rice, maybe with a side of cabbage or like some other type of vegetable. But yeah, that's another meal that I make. It's quick, easy, simple, convenient. Maximize those things in your diet, you're probably gonna have better results. I know for a fact, like for myself, whenever I am dieting and whenever I do have success, those are things that like kind of help out a lot. Like I'm not focusing on macros. I'm not focusing on like where those kind of things come. Being completely honest, maybe I should, but at the current moment, I don't. More so than anything, I'm trying to refine my habits and improve those habits, track them over time and whatnot. So for one, as much as possible, protein with every meal. That one's the easiest one, because that's the one I've been doing with like my entire life. Probably like sometimes I like do double protein, which, you know, also means double fat, but whatever. So protein with every meal. This is at least 3 to 4 meals a day at relatively the same amount of time, maybe plus or minus an hour. So have a meal schedule. That will help out for a lot of people. Have a meal schedule. I don't care what you eat during that time, but only eat during that time. No snacking in between. If you are going to snack, have it with your meal, because then like you know when you ate it and you know what you ate it with and everything like that. If you snack mindless throughout the day, you're going to forget it. You're going to not track it. You're not going to know where your fat's coming from. And, you know, where it's coming from is where you least want to look. And that's where you're not tracking. So have consistent meal times. If you are going to, don't snack, but if you are, have it with your meal. So, you know, it's pretty easy for a lot of people. If you're going to have chips, have it with your sandwich, you know, but ideally don't have it with your sandwich. But, you know, we're not perfect. We're not, and don't plan for perfection either. So those are a couple things. Fruits and veggies with every meal. That one I'm still working on.
Yeah. I don't hear that either though. So.
I got to work on that a lot. One thing that I do like too is like from the vertical diet. I think the best thing that came out of the vertical diet is just walking after every meal. It's not even.
Can you expand on that? I don't know if I'm familiar with the vertical diet.
Oh, so the vertical diet is from Stan Efferding. It's basically all beef, rice, and some vegetables, like the ones that don't produce, like, I'm not very like huge on the scientific literature, but like there's some vegetables that produce like some type of gas because it's not very easily digestible.
Oh, I got
so
you.
Like broccoli is one of them. I think like he'd rather have you have spinach or something, right? And like that kind of stuff. So lots of beef, rice, and like that. So, but then one thing he also says is that after every meal, go for a 10-minute walk. And I think that's one of the best things that came out of that diet is just as part of your diet activity. Like let's put that in there. So but yeah, so just habit-based stuff going from those are like I would say the first 3. Just fruits and vegetables every meal, consistent meal timing, don't eat outside of that, and then go from there. Like I think that's more important than like what you eat. It's more about how.
I got you. Very cool. Yeah, so it's coming back to like that finding things that work for you, taking it like it doesn't sound like you do strict vertical diet, but you at least took that 10-minute walk, and now it's a part of, you know, your toolbox, your rituals, your lifestyle. So I think, but it's funny because like some of what you gave, like I don't think I could fit into mine. Like I kind of eat sporadically right now. Like I don't have. Some days I eat breakfast, some days I don't. Some days, like I'll have my banana peanut butter as a snack. Some days I don't. So it's like I'm very sporadic, but also I'm not strictly chasing like a strict hypertrophy goal right now. So I'm a little more lax in my lifestyle. But it's like some advice I hear, like I don't think I could ever apply to myself and have it be sustainable. you know? So I think
yeah, that's normal.
Yeah, exactly. So it's coming back to this is the answer, this is the way. But at the end of the day, we're all human and we're going to find things that work for us very different, you know? So, but that's awesome. Sounds like you're making great progress on all your eating habits and things like that.
Trying to.
Yeah. I have to, part of the challenge for me is like my friends like to eat out a lot, and I only join them once a week. Like it's not fun being like, no, I'm not going to come out Wednesday and eat out with you guys. Cause like, of course I would rather go out and eat with my friends than sit at home and like edit a YouTube video. Like that's, it's no doubt in your mind what you want to do. But at the end of the day, it's like, I don't want to call it a sacrifice, but where are your priorities? Like what is your heart and your habits and your mind really trying to be aligned toward? And of course, sometimes you give in temptation, you know, that's just part of being human. But most days, like 80% of your time, where are your habits and mindset aligning, you know? So
yeah, 100%. 100% agree with that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I ran through most of my questions I written down. I don't know if you had any other topics you were trying to hop on or not. So
this is one that I probably could have asked like a bit earlier into it, but
run back.
So the tagline or the slogan of my channel is "Start where you stand," right? So there's kind of two, and I want to kind of get a little bit of your start where you stand story. But there's kind of two ways you can go about this. Everyone has like, you know, when they decided to go into the gym, everyone has that. But was there ever a moment where you almost stopped training, like maybe fell out of love with it, and then you had to pick yourself back up from there?
Yeah. So just give background why I got into training. So like I played football in high school. We do like basic training. It's literally just like snatches and bench press, like that, and squats. Like that was my training. It wasn't fun. I didn't even start on the football team. I was like, why am I training during the summer? I could be hanging out with like, I'm on like the third string, you know? So, so I trained during that. And then I actually started getting into lifting once I stopped playing rugby. Like I played rugby in high school and then a little bit through my community college and some volunteer work I did. And once I stopped playing rugby, I was getting beat up from it. And I'm just not that great a sports analyst, at least just be honest. So I just putting time to things I wasn't starting. And I was like, I need a new activity. So that was where weightlifting entered the picture when I started training more seriously around like 21, 22. But after, like I mentioned, I did a deadlift competition back where I cut down. I actually injured my back not too long after that. And I don't know, looking back, I don't know how serious the injury was. Maybe if I just like did some more rehab for like a month, it would have been okay. But after like my back hurt, I just stopped lifting and I kind of fell out of it. I was like, oh, this is dumb. I hurt myself, you know. And then it came, so 2018, I didn't lift too much. 2019, I went overseas. And that was like a year period where I was finally like, you know, let's reevaluate what was the point? How did I hurt myself? How can I get back into this in a more sustainable fashion instead of always number chasing like I was? And I was super light then. I think the cut has something to do with it as well. So that was kind of a point where I fell back in love with training, was slight change of the goals and just gaining more knowledge too. It really expands your horizons. Yeah. So hopefully I answered the full question for you.
No, that was great. Because like one thing I feel like with a lot of people, especially what I'm noticing now, is that we make great progress towards something, but then we come to realize that we're actually going in the opposite direction of what we really want. And then, you know, the one thing that I truly believe is that like the further you are away from your own ideals, the more you just like, the less you love life and yourself.
I got you.
Yeah. So it's kind of like having those moments. Sometimes the best things that have happened to me were injuries or things that took me out of the gym. Because for me, I was fine with being a lazy sack of shit for most of my life until I broke my ankle. And then I was just like, damn, I can't move. Like I can't go out, walk, run, exercise or do anything else. I can't do these things. And then I just kind of thought to myself, well, if I keep living this lifestyle, that's going to be true again. Like I'm eventually like, you know, maybe right now my ankle's broken. What if like, you know, at that point I was already pre-diabetic. So it's just like, what if they have to cut it off, you know? Like I had a grandfather who like lost his leg and I was just like, damn, that sucks. And then never really like thought really much else about it. And then until it became real that, you know, this is a likely possibility for me where my life would be this. And then I just hated that. So literally the day that my cast came off, the first thing I did was go into the gym and hit upper body like workout.
That's
like
awesome.
it was mainly like light dumbbell curls or whatever, but I just couldn't wait. I was like, I'm not waiting for this anymore. So for me, like from there, I have never went more than a week without some type of a workout. Even if it's small, even if it's something just, even if it's like totally unrelated to something that I do. Like even when I had COVID, like the moment, like I didn't like, if I, like when I tested, like when I had like my lungs back, I was breathing properly, my throat didn't hurt anymore. I stayed the hell away from everyone because I wasn't testing negative yet, but I went for a run because I was just like, I need to
some
get
movement.
Yeah. Because I was just like, this is like sitting around like that was just not good. So maybe that's irresponsible to do, or to say, but it's what I had to do for myself, right? And yeah, so when it comes to a lot of people's like, you know, stories and stuff like that, like I do think that the best results always come on the other side of overcoming that moment where either you have to be taken away from it, or you have to kind of reevaluate, reassess where you want to go from there.
So. Well, my main reason of at least spreading like lifting messages now is, I mean, just being surrounded by, I don't know how to put this politely, but I guess just unhealthy people, honestly. Like it just kind of hurts my soul. Like I know the possibilities people could have if, you know, they like did what you did. Even if you can't do much, you're still doing something, you know, the life they could have. Like my grandma suffered like 4 years in the hospice for a bit. Like it was factors out of her control, but also at the end the eating was not good either. So it's like, do people need to suffer like this because of our habits and things like that? But so for me now, it's like I want to get bigger. Like that's always a fun thing to do, but it's also like, how can I spread health as well for people? Because the shift needs to change. So, but definitely hurting my back was a reevaluation. Now hurting my pec again is another reevaluation of, okay, should I keep training strength? I'm definitely going to hit that 325 bench I need for the gym wall eventually, but switch gears for now, focusing on getting a bigger pec when I heal. And then hopefully it'll be a lot easier, you know, to hit these goals in the future. Bigger muscles is a stronger one at the end of the day. So
yeah, definitely. And one thing I appreciate about you and what you're doing is that when it comes to, and this applies to, you know, a lot of people in our space, when it comes to getting better, people can get better regardless of any circumstance, you know, like you're injured, like you injured your back, you injured your pec, like as long as if there's a will, there's a way. Like we're constantly proving that to be the case. And, you know, when it comes to health is not this just one like image that you find on magazines or on specific YouTube channels or a certain look. It really is a process that is applied to each person. So I really do appreciate your message, and I really wish the best for you. And I think that's going to be very well needed for everything moving forward.
I appreciate that. I have a question. So why did you choose more weightlifting stuff? Like, let's say instead of like calisthenics or yoga or things like that. For me, like weightlifting was just what I saw online, you know, more that's what drew me towards that more than like, I wasn't seeing like awesome guys doing crazy yoga poses, you know, googly, like if that was my exposure, maybe that would have been my path. Or I didn't really see calisthenic skills like till later, until I started like watching more YouTube fitness content, you know. So maybe that could have been like a path. So why was your journey more towards weightlifting and things like that?
I would have to say that it was because of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and like I watched Pumping Iron for the first time when I was like, you know, like had a cast on my leg and was just sitting on the couch, and I was just like, let me see what this is about. Like, because like I was a huge Arnold fan. Like I love the movies like Predator, like and Last Action Hero and Terminator and whatnot. And I think that was Arnold, right? Last Action Hero. I don't know. It's been a while, but anyway, so I was a huge fan, and then I was just like, well, let me watch this because I kind of exhausted Netflix at the time. And when I saw that, I was just like, I had this moment where I just kind of thought to myself, like, I could do that. Like, it wasn't a matter of like, could I, or maybe I could, or something like that. I just, for whatever reason, I just thought to myself, I could do that. And then so I decided to start getting into working out as soon as like I could. A lot of the people that I looked up to, like one of the first workout programs I actually followed was from someone he's in the fitness industry, but he's not like a fitness YouTuber. At least that's not his main thing. Bart Kwan. Like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's the guy who made like Barbell Brigade, like that gym.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he was at the time like doing like comedy skits with his friends. And fitness was like his afterthought. And I was just like, okay, well, so this guy has an impressive physique and he lifts weights. Then I started looking at like some other guys. I was like, all right, these guys have impressive physiques and they lift weight. So that kind of like put me into that, got my foot into the door. And it's kind of, you know, I'm coming back to myself now, because what got me into lifting wasn't powerlifting. I didn't find powerlifting. I think that was the coolest thing ever. I found it along the way of me trying to like get a better physique. And powerlifting can help to an extent, but you know, you have to modify it, you have to make it a bit different, you have to make it more like bodybuilding for you to get the actual benefit from it. And then so coming back to myself now, more interested into bodybuilding. Part of the reason why I didn't really get into calisthenics nearly as much is just I had more fun doing weights. Like that's really what it boiled down to. It was just more fun. Like if I had to compare a push-up to a bench press, I will do bench press every single time.
100, yes.
Like I get a great pump from push-ups. I think push-ups are a phenomenal exercise and they're a great exercise, but do I have fun doing them? Hell no. Like and then when it came to all the other cool acrobatic stuff, none of that really mattered nearly as much to me for whatever reason. Like if someone could do muscle ups, I was like, that's cool. And then I'll just like go back to doing regular pull-ups because I was just like, I'm just trying to get a bigger back.
Yeah, I got you.
But when I saw like a big deadlift, I was like, I could do that. But then like, and then I wanted to also. So
yeah,
those are like the main differences. Yeah.
That's
what are some other health and fitness hobbies that you have? Like, or is it just mainly like lifting weights?
Right now it's just lifting weights. I've always had a conglomerate of goals, I should say, in terms of fitness and health. So I actually just hit one before I tore my pec, which was a muscle up. So after I finished my power building phase, I was going to do like a lot of calisthenics skills. So like I can handstand. I was trying to learn handstand push up. I wanted like front lever planche because I've always had an interest in them. But past 4 years have been strictly weightlifting. So I was going to change it up and like explore these skills. And then, you know, pec injury. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm just going to do the bodybuilding train for a bit. So I've always had a interest in many things. Like I want to be the jack of all trades. And I think within a lifetime, you can be, you know, if I could keep up this physique, like I feel like the physique I have is a good standard for many people to reach and it is realistic. You know, they'll never look like me. You're not me, but you can look a way you want to with similar progressions. But if I dedicate this time frame, then I've kept that. And then let's say I want to do a calisthenics stint. It'd be sweet to have like a 180-pound guy with like heavy legs doing a front lever when you look at normal calisthenic athletes and they're all like skinny boys, you know? So it's like, is it the strength there or is it you're just, I mean, they're still strong, of course, but you don't have like tree trunk legs hanging out in front of you, changing your leverages. So I was like, that'd be cool to change too. And then I've always loved yoga too. I haven't done much of it since I've been really focusing on weightlifting, but so I've always had a conglomerate of activities. I've just naturally been an active guy, I guess. So outside of that, I don't know if I have too many health things I keep out for besides like my diet, make sure my activities, but we are human beings. So you need to make sure you get your like social gatherings intact. We are social creatures. So you need that, you know, you need your sleep, you need to de-stress. So health conscious in terms of my lifestyle. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's really good. Really good.
Yeah.
So I think we covered a lot of good topics.
I think so.
I think we can definitely come together again, like in the near future, like do another one, and that would be really good. I really enjoyed this conversation, man. So
you too.
Really do want to stress like that. I'm really looking forward to seeing your channel grow. Want to see that message get out there to more people. So thank you so much for talking with me, man. It was thank you so much for reaching out. It's been a great pleasure and a great honor.
Yes, no, thank you for chatting with me as well. I appreciate the community that's growing. I just figured I'd reach out. I was like, man, this guy talked to natural hypertrophy. Might as well shoot an email. You know, everyone's just the community is really growing right now. And I think things will change in terms of health and information people are getting. So I think people like you, Jeff, natural hypertrophy, you know, just everything will hopefully brighten up a little. So
yeah, thanks for including me in that.
No, man, we're all in the upswing right now, you know.
Awesome. So great talk, man. I'll catch you later.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course.